Welcome back to the Purpose Over Profits podcast. I'm Jim Floyd, owner of Ascent Total Performance.
My name is Jeremy Powers, owner of Powers Insurance Experts.
So today we have a really cool episode with a really awesome guest. So Jeremy, do you want to introduce?
Absolutely. Alex is, he's just, I think he said the Salmonator already, so I'll let him tell you that. But just a great friend of mine that was an insurance agent, and then he decided that's not really a cool industry. And so he jumped out to do something much, much more interesting. And so I'll let you kind of elaborate on that a little bit more, Alex.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Salmonator thing. That I don't remember where that came from. I do remember. I used to work at a marina years ago when I was in high school, and one of the guys that I worked with, he just always called me Salmonator, and it stuck. But anyway,
just little things.
It is, yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, like I said, so you now have your business that obviously you run more video content creation type stuff. I don't want to take away or add to. I don't want to all of a sudden announce this new service that you have before you tell everyone else.
No, for sure. Yeah,
break it down for us.
Yeah, no, that's video is a huge portion of what I do. I also do a lot of photography, still photography, so headshots, composites, portraits, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that, as a small business, you have to have something visual, right? I mean, you just said, you guys doing this podcast, y'all just started really doing more video with it, and that's huge. It gives you another, something else for the senses. But anyway, as a small business, I think we all kind of learned this back, when COVID hit, that, if you're not in somebody's face, in their ear, then you're missing out on business. And that's kind of, what propelled me forward, making the change that I did. There was a lot of things that led up to it, but really I started trying to make myself stand out. Mm-hmm. As an agent, whenever I had my insurance agency, and I don't want to kind of get too far ahead, but and people started calling me saying, "Hey, Alex, I really like what you're doing. Can you do this for me?" Or, "Hey, I see you do portraits. Are you able to do family portraits? Can you do my headshot?" Those types of things, and it's been great. It's been a wild ride so far.
That's it. We'll call them Big Blue. That's what we'll refer to as the carrier that you were with prior. But, at the end of the day, what I love and knowing you and getting to know you over several years is that, yes, we could have been rivals. We were really right down the street. I mean, I think I went by and threw a few rocks at your window. I mean, I'm just playing. That's a joke.
I remember that.
But you were an absolute awesome agent, and it was so fun to become friends and to learn what you were doing and be able to collaborate together. But it's also that uniqueness, what made you you. And what I'll say that I think corporations get wrong so often is they want everything to be by the book, cookie cutter. This is our marketing strategy. Here's your social post. Here's what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. Mm-hmm. And they completely suck out the creativity, which is what allows you to individualize yourself from not only the competition of other carriers, but also those same local agents that are brick and mortar just like you. It's almost like your name's the only thing that separates you. And I know you got some pushback from time to time or two because of choosing to be individualized. And so I want to kind of talk about that. We'll talk about you taking the leap of faith that as much as you want to, and we'll dive into that. But I want to talk about when you were there, how was it? Did it feel like it was sucking you dry more often than not?
Yeah, it definitely, it could feel like you're on an island sometimes. And good, bad, or indifferent. I a lot of times use the mantra of it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, because usually when you're dealing with a corporation and you ask permission, they say, well, we've got to send it through this channel. And then it gets lost on somebody's desk that sits there for weeks. And then all of a sudden, you're whatever you needed that for is long gone. Yeah. Somebody else has taken that business from you. I kind of, started just doing things anyway. And I wasn't doing anything wrong. There was nothing unethical or anything like that. It was just, I needed to make, to put myself out there, because you can't throw a rock in any direction here in Columbia or anywhere in the country really without hitting another insurance agent.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to do something to make yourself stand out.
Yeah.
So for me, the creative side, I played music when I was younger. That really filled that void or kind of started that fire. And, played in a few different bands, and we would, we didn't do anything big. It was like, cover songs and things like that. But I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of fun. And as I got older, met my now wife. We've been married. This July will be 17 years. So I'm super excited about that. But, once you have responsibilities and things you have to do, right? You can't just sit around and play music all the time and work, at bars and clubs and things like that. So, I lost that. I had a void there. And when my first son was born, he just turned 12 last month or month before last. I found a camera, started taking pictures, and I felt that fire again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was awesome. Felt great. And just really went all in with it and probably took, 10,000 pictures of him. And that was just, the first couple of weeks. Right?
Yeah.
But, from there, it just, I was pushing the envelope a little bit further and further to see what I was capable of. And it's kind of a leap in that essence because, you put things out there and art is so subjective, right?
Sure.
But, there's definitely oh my gosh, somebody's going to think this is awful, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I've definitely been, I've been there before. And it's thinking, as Zig Ziglar used to always say.
Yeah.
But, being able to share my creative side and figuring out a way to do that in my insurance business, like I never thought that was possible.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, I really kind of fell in love with it. And I found myself doing that more than I was doing the insurance side.
Yeah.
And that was even before COVID.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit and, retaining employees became darn near impossible. Nobody wanted to work. And I was kind of shouldering everything. I didn't have time to do all the other stuff that I was enjoying doing. And, so having to take all of that on was, it was taxing.
Yeah.
And saw an opportunity to, take that leap, as you said, Jeremy. And, I haven't looked back.
Yeah.
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, Jim, in your industry, I'm sure a little bit different than ours. We have maybe corporations that when you work for a big brick and mortar, that'll kind of limit you. And then now on the independent side, it's almost scary how unlimited you are because you've got to now create a brand from scratch. I think it's so hard to realize, like when you have that Allstate or a State Farm or, Liberty Mutual, whatever that brand, they're spending millions, if not billions of dollars in advertising. So everyone knows who it is. But when you all of a sudden go and you're completely independent, you're like, oh, this is great, but also like no one knows who I am. In your world, you have a little bit of a different thing. I would assume there's like legal, medical, law type stuff. How does that, for a business owner that wants to become unique or whatnot, individualize themselves, how does that play into a world like yours?
Well, so you got a big spectrum. So we've got everywhere from the big corporation clinics kind of thing down to the single person, just one man show kind of thing. And so some of it's similar, but then so we have to deal with a lot more because it's healthcare. So you have to deal with privacy laws, and you have to, if you're taking insurance payments, you have to deal with all those different rules and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of something where you can't just decide like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. You got to know what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to be breaking federal law. You're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. So I think there's some similarities between things, but then there's is kind of the devil's in the details kind of thing too. I really want to lean in for you of like, so you found this thing you're passionate about with photography and video production and all that stuff, and you're still going, working in the insurance industry and all that kind of stuff. And I know we just talked about COVID happening, and that's taken away a lot from a lot of the thing you're passionate about, kind of going the other direction. So was it a certain event or anything like that that really kind of brought on of like, you know what, this is not how I want to be going. I want to make this shift.
Well, I guess yes and no. My wife and I, we've talked about it many times leading up to that, but it was just one of those things that I prayed a lot about it. We had many discussions on it, and what does the future look like?
Yeah,
because I thought that I would be passing on my insurance agency to my kids one day.
Yeah.
That was the dream.
That's
it.
And I fully believed that. And it's amazing how, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds with religion or anything, but just how God can just, all right, you go do that for a little while. That's what you want to do. Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I have other things for you.
Yeah.
And since that has happened, I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing companies. I do for profit, but there's a number of companies I work with that I don't charge for my services.
Mm-hmm.
I give back to these organizations in the form of doing like pro bono photo shoots for families in need that maybe not able to afford to pay for a photographer to take pictures of their family.
Sure.
And capturing their little babies, when they're just weeks, months old. Yeah. Those things are so important. And, I almost like that more than somebody paying me thousands of dollars.
Well, so you get to do something that you love. And I want to elaborate one time. That's incredible. I don't want to miss this one, I think, nugget that we talked about a moment ago, where you talked about how ultimately you were in a position and you took that leap of faith, but you had this idea of, I'm supposed to pass this on to my family. But it's like you said, well, God, really was able to say, hey, do this for a little bit, but now I have bigger plans for you. It's what you do with what you have in that season. If you steward well what you've been given, that is ultimately all we can look to do. Because we don't know. We might have these beautiful plans for our life, and we may say, oh, well, this is chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Well, all of a sudden, it goes from a picture book to a chapter novel, and then back to a song and dance. And so what I would just say is that entrepreneur out there, leader, look within and just be happy. I know it's hard to say, or it's easy to say, just be happy, but look for what you can take from that moment. What can you learn? Because there's things you learned as an insurance agent, once again, which no one except for me grows up and dreams to be an insurance agent. I'm just playing. I didn't even do that. And I love this industry, but no one plans to be there. But man, I bet you there's things you've taken from that season of your life. Number one, you know how to appreciate where you are more because you're actually doing what you love and what you're called to do. It's not just something you've always done, and so it gets a little old. But also there's other things from business owner's perspective, or from now knowing and understanding something that's also important, insurance, in your life. I love how you said that he called me there for a season, and there was a reason. You know what I mean? But you weren't stuck there. You chose to move forward. And I know that so many people are going through things like that, where you're part of an organization and you feel stuck and you feel trapped. Just because you're there doesn't mean that's where you're called to be. And also, just because you're there doesn't mean that you just sit here and look through the window at what could be. You own where you are in that moment, but you always be willing to take a leap if that's what God calls you to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really love what you did was you felt that's how you needed to go. And then I think the biggest thing, and so I think we can salute you too, and I think we've all kind of been in that situation, is having the courage to be able to do that. This is not an easy thing to do, especially in your case of leaving a income producing thing to this thing you're already doing some, but then it's gotta you hit that point where it's either do it or you don't. And it's something that's like you can't do it halfway on either end of it. It's got to be one or the other kind of thing.
Yeah, I definitely I felt that. could not be 100% in both areas.
Yeah.
And that was hard. That was really hard because, I wanted to succeed in both areas, but I couldn't do both.
Yeah.
And I learned that the very hard way. Now, I will say though, admitting that, this was not going to be the best thing for me long term, that was hard. That was really hard to come to that realization. But as soon as I did and said, all right, this is the direction I want to go. And once I finally made the choice to move forward, I would interact with friends and family and they'd say, you just seem so much happier.
Yeah.
I'm sure you also had the opposite, though, of the people that love you and they don't want what's bad for you. So they think you've drinking a little bit of cuckoo juice. And they're like, you've got an established agency here and you're telling me you want to go make videos when there's 1,000 people that are making videos. And so not only do you have to really position yourself mentally to make the adjustment yourself, but you also have to be willing to not listen to, because a lot of people love you, but they want you to be safe. Because they care about you. Yeah. And so it's like trying to explain to them like, hey, I'm taking this leap of faith, but I don't need you to just pray for me. I don't need you to support me. I don't need you to do anything. I just need you just to pray for my success and whatever it may be, but I know that's the ugly part that we don't want to talk about. So people that love you and they think you're making a mistake, so they try to spend a couple hours talking you out.
Yeah.
For sure. The amazing thing, my wife and I have such a good relationship and we couldn't be more different. I'm the big risk taker, head in the clouds, like big dreamer. And she is the opposite. She does not like to take risk. If there is a risk, it's super calculated and well thought out. She's very intentional with what she does. And I mean, I'm just in awe of how she operates because I am nothing like that. But it took me a long time to realize that that's not a bad thing for me. So just because I can't do what she does doesn't mean that it's, a detriment to me.
No, not at all.
So
what a team.
Yeah.
I love bouncing ideas off of her and she didn't sugarcoat it.
Well, as long as you can
first one to say it's stupid, Alex, don't do that.
Well, as long as you can trust each other. I tell everyone there's no better thing than having a spouse and you're different, but you allow each other to be, like your backs are to each other, but man, how much more are you able to see?
Yeah.
You're not like I love, like my wife and I now we're certain areas that we're not, but there's certain areas that we are very much aligned. And it's great in those moments because I don't have anyone telling me, no, don't, you know what I mean? But there is that beauty too, when you can look in different directions, but yet you trust each other and you're not questioning every move just because it's not what you would do, but you trust that they want what's best for you as well. But in vice versa, you learn to let go and you learn to give that trust as well. A spouse or a partner, or like you said at this table, being around other people who have taken that leap of faith, there's something so special about a bond that you have when you know what it's like, know, and you know what it's like to let go and trust and have faith and courage and all of those different things. But that's just an incredible testament to your relationship. But also, if you're not married, someone who's out there, it's the relationships and people you surround yourself with. Learn to trust those who want what's best for you. Not that you have to give them everything, but it's okay sometimes to not be right.
Amen.
Yep.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that I hope that our listeners and our watchers get out of this is, we need to pursue the things we're passionate about. That is what's going to pervade. And biggest thing with that is just being able to take that step too. So not all of us are luckily enough or fortunate enough to really find that thing that we're super passionate about too. So we think about all those people out there that are still just kind of going to work because they just need to make an income and all that stuff. They don't have that thing.
Sure.
I think everybody in this room has been fortunate to be able to find those things. But that's only the first part of it. Is we gotta
Mhm.
take those steps to right. We're gonna pursue this and lean into it and all that stuff too. So I applaud you for
Yeah.
being able to do that.
It's those
thank
Friday
you.
Awesome.
Facebook
Yeah.
posters, like I can't wait till it's Friday, or I can't believe the weekend's over.
Right.
I mean, I don't like
Yeah.
working with my boss, but then I look in the mirror and there he is. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So I'm stuck with me. That's about
Right.
the only thing I don't like. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's so great to not be in that position and you put yourself there. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur, to someone who's maybe working in an organization, someone who's already started 3 businesses and they're just not passionate, but they still haven't truly chased their real passion? What advice would you give to someone that was right there in the moment that you feel like helped you make that leap, or looking back, something that you wish you maybe would have done?
Well, hindsight's always 20/20, right? I mean, it could have easily gone the other way.
Mhm.
Sure.
Could have fallen flat on my face.
Yeah.
And I mean, at times I do fall on my face.
Sure.
But, and everybody's heard this platitude, but it's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get back
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's, if you're truly passionate about something and you can do it. And yes, you talk about, friends and family, whoever it is that's in the back of your head that's saying, that's really dangerous. You're putting yourself at a lot of risk.
Yeah.
Think about that, and those voices are good to have, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
However, if you know in your heart of hearts that you can do it, and maybe you just need somebody to say, go for it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's all you need.
Yeah.
And if you fail, then you fail. Again, I don't mean to quote Zig Ziglar again,
Yeah.
but
Hey,
But
do it.
yeah, he always said, failure is an event. It's not a person,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So people aren't failures. Failures are just things that happen.
Absolutely. And like I say, anything invented that's worthy is someone had to take risks. I mean, I don't want to know, but I mean, the light bulb. I mean, I think when you hear how many times it was a failure, I don't know the number, so I don't want to guess it, but how many times it was a failure before everyone's like, oh, well, the light bulb's a thing. It's like, yeah, but there were, 10,000 plus not, what you would consider failures, but it was not giving up. And that's what we have today. And so what you're creating is special because it's a legacy builder. It's like I can tell every time that I see what you put out and what you do, you can see your passion in it. And that's hard to do when it comes in the form of a policy jacket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard, but in what you're doing now, it's where you're called to be. And I mean, I would guess that's an absolute inspiration to your children, to your marriage, because when you bring home all that, man, this isn't what I was called to do. It's easy for that stuff to pour into home life and all of the things that surround you, because it's a deterrent. It really is. And so now you've got something that's really fueling you up, which you can give out. So you guys spend a lot of time as a family out in the trails,
Right.
doing a lot of cool stuff. And so on these trails, has there been a book or a podcast or something that you've maybe taken in, or maybe even 10 years ago, that you would say to the audience, hey guys, this is something that you should check out? Zig Ziglar's been a lot of conversation. So I'm nervous that we might be getting another Zig Ziglar here.
Well, what's the old saying? If you ever see a turtle up on a fence post, you can guarantee he didn't get up there alone, right? Somebody had to help him. So there's so many things that have helped me along the way. I think one thing in particular, since we're talking about insurance, and shout out to these guys, but Bradley Flowers and Scott Howell, Insurance Guys podcast, those guys were huge inspiration to me, just to get up and do something different, do it a little differently, because the old, what's the old, you think of an insurance agent as, khakis and loafers and right. And when they came out back in, I guess it was 2017, and I just liked the fact that there was another Southern drawl that I could relate to.
That's right.
And they were super approachable.
Yeah. Your podcast episode was wonderful. I was very blessed to be. They asked me to be on a couple weeks ago, and I was like, now Alex is not the only South Carolina guy here on the no. But I remember listening to his episode, and I was like, man, how they shouted you out when you took the leap of faith. This man had so many great relationships that they literally had an episode, and they said, I want to stop everything, and I want to congratulate my friend for being willing to set his agency aside and chase his dreams. But that's who you are. Anyone you meet, you become a friend. And I'm so honored that you'd be someone that I would have at the table anytime, man. You're an inspiration to so many. And so ultimately it's just get out there, create relationships, go listen, take in content, and make friends with those in your industry.
That's right.
I would
say. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned something right at the beginning. I can't remember if we were even rolling or not, but we were talking about, how we first met, and we could have been enemies because, we were in the same industry. Mm-hmm. But that's a scarcity mindset,
that's
right? You have to have an abundance mindset. And if you do that, I mean, there's just plenty of business to go around. Yeah. And I don't care what industry you're in. To say that I can't be friends with somebody because they do the same thing that I do, and they're going to take my business, that's just crazy. I can't think that way. It doesn't. That leads you down the wrong path, and that's a miserable feeling. So, abundance mindset.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can't.
Very good. Yep. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I think it's a really inspirational story, and hopefully it kind of gives a kick in the butt to some of those listeners out there too for taking that leap to pursue what they're passionate about.
Yeah. And that abundance mindset. I mean, if that's what we ended off with, absolute key. Live with that abundance mindset. Well, man, we look forward to seeing all the things you have going on. Make sure you follow, or let's give people the opportunity. Where can they find you? I'm sure you probably don't have a website or an Instagram or anything like that, but like Yellow Pages, maybe, I guess.
Right. Yellow Pages. Remember that? No, my social handle is Salmon Photo and Video. I think Instagram is salmon.photo.video, and then salmonphotoandvideo.com. That's where you can get me.
That's awesome.
Very good.
All right. Well, you guys have a great one. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you for another week, and we look forward to getting back to it again next week.